So my name is Zaven Paré. I'm here to present a few elements of my works. Here it's part of a assemblage of a construction with different elements as anthropomorphic dispositive with motors or amplifiers or speakers as organs. Normally when it's working, I have some water here, and the function of this object was to transform an organic noise in case the bubble in the water in an electronic noise here amplified. So most of my machines are just part of the body, and because I don't need it's necessary to represent completely to give the feeling of life. And most of the things I built are fragile or got a certain vulnerability. I started to build stuff 20 years ago. Mostly I start from drawings and drawings of machine, and one day I built one of those machines that at least was working, and with system of projection and after an interface, digital interface, and I've used it as a puppet for theater, and those puppet becomes the first electronical puppet. I've done an analogical puppet, a digital puppet, and once Japanese researcher was at the same congress. I've shown my work, and I present how it is the work of artists are different than the work of roboticists. The roboticist until this time was working on mostly imitation, when artists are working on representation. So he get very interested in my work, and he decided to make a platform on theater research for robotic, and I went to Japan to work with them as a consultant to direct very small movement, very tiny movement for the performance with anthropomorphic robots. And the other works on the wall are just relics of drawings of, in this case, more recent, with the idea of the robots looking to the future. Most of the time, we are in the situation to speak with a robot, and we all worry about human point of view. And I think it's time to question the robot's point of view. What are they looking at? What are they thinking about their own future?
How was your journey from France to Japan and from Japan to Brazil?
Okay, so at least, yeah, I'm French. I'm living in Brazil since 20 years, and since more than 5 years now, I'm working mostly in Japan, in Osaka University. I had the opportunity to assist to the development of many projects with robots as actor, humanoid like Wakamaru, or different kind of Geminoid like the Geminoid F, which actually is used in 2 plays, and other robots like RoboV. So already in Japan today there's a real repertoire of theater with robot. Robot use robot is now a kind of new gender really in theater, and those play a mixture of actor and with machine to have the opportunity to put robot in very casual, colloquial situation, because until a few years ago, when we was testing robots in the laboratory, it was always frontal situation, and most of the time, even with anthropomorphic robot, the experiment wasn't that much different than a test of Turing with robots. So if you put in a colloquial situation or a more normal situation of every day, you can start to see other behavior, you can start to imagine other possibilities of situation with robots. For example, to assist old people, to assist sick people, or to be a company only. So it's my work as a dramaturg in robots laboratory.
What do you think is the most important robotic art in the world right now?
Oh, but I don't think that something is most important than another things. But what is interesting is that the fact that robotic point in many different directions. So the opportunity to do theater with robotic, in a way, it's an experiment about behavior. In other kind of arts performance, they test social behavior of groups of robots. So it depends really of the interfaces and what you want to explore as application with robot, because it's not very evident that robot will be around us in the future. I have some doubt about it, but in other way, they will be around us as different dispositive in different other objects. So even in art, visual art or installation or theater or dance, or using robotic system and pointing different kind of views of application, and it's interesting that art can be an articulation to see other possibilities of such a complex object, of such complexity.
Where are you looking for inspiration?
Well, I don't have any romantic idea about inspiration. For me, there is no inspiration. The point is for an artist is to do things, and doing things. You make objects, and from those objects you start to be enchanted, and it's make you thinking. But I think that what I make, it's not coming from inspiration at all. I want to do something, to experiment something, a little bit like what's happening with in a lab with engineering, but I have an idea, I'm doing the project, and I built it, and after I look at it and try to make it better or keep it weak, or most of the time what is more complicated to keep with work with machine is to give poetry to machine, to show fragility, vulnerability, and maybe in a way to make them more human, but in another way, if an object have a potential of fragility, it gives a certain degree of empathy in relation with objects.